Anyway, so yeah, we can start, I guess. I am here to say that state welfare is bad. It doesn't let you live a good life according to my principle. It prevents me from being able to live my life to the fullest, live a virtuous life, and for that reason, I think that free markets are better, have been better in the past, and solve more problems. That's my opening statement.
Thank you.
So, I readily admit that welfare has its share of problems, but if free markets were good at eliminating welfare, then it would have done so. There's companies that constantly increase their prices without necessarily increasing their wages, which results in a large portion of the population left in the dust, and therefore welfare is the current answer. Now, this doesn't mean I'm not open to other ideas. I'm not loyal to ideas or ideologies. I'm loyal to what works. So if there's a proven system that will answer the needs of the population, then let's have at it. Convince me.
Well, this isn't change my mind, but I mean,
But this is your opportunity. I mean, I am willing to change my mind, provided sufficient evidence and reason to do so, just like with anything else.
okay. Do you accept my premise that for me, a welfare state doesn't serve me? It society, in a sense, is meant to serve the individuals in society, and a welfare state doesn't help me. And on top of that, the requirements to pay for a welfare state hurt me severely.
How does a welfare state hurt you?
Well, I'm heavily taxed. In addition to being I'm heavily taxed to a point where I am unable currently to save for my pension, but we have to save for our pensions over here, and when I get to that age, almost everything is private, so I'm very much required to do that. I'm also interested in saving money for my children's education. I've yet to be able to do that. I'm taxed heavily in a way that I can say that this is taking money out of myself and my family. In addition, the stuff that the UK provides in terms of healthcare and stuff like that is inadequate for specifically my family. We have to buy pills from abroad. We have to see private specialists. I have private health insurance. We did. I would say that when our children were born, we did use the NHS, and that was a relatively good service. But in terms of anything along the lines of long-term diseases and cancer, the track rate is very poor. Operations as well. Let's just start with that.
So, what percentage of your taxes go to the welfare state?
Of my taxes, or just my taxes in general?
What percentage of your taxes go to the welfare state?
I think the majority of the budget goes to the welfare state, similar to America.
So you haven't looked into how much of your taxes are going to the welfare state?
So I'm gonna have to say, like, in terms of the overall, how much the UK allocates in its budget towards welfare, towards entitlements and welfare, more than half of them, or the majority of it, is for those things.
Okay. How many people are on welfare in the United Kingdom?
I'm unsure to answer that right now. To some degree, there's a lot of people that receive some sort of assistance. There are a variety of different families right now that are called just about managing, that are receiving monetary help, either on the national level or the local council level. There are currently issues with high price of food, high price of energy and heat in the UK. The energy prices have gone up between 3 and 4 times since October in 21. There are families in Wales, for example, that have to make decisions between either paying for food, or people on fixed income, like elderly people, either pay for food or pay for heat. And particularly the energy policies are decisions made by government that led us down to here. So if the government didn't take certain actions, then people would not be in need of welfare, or much less. And that is also part of the claim that I'm going to make, that if you take the top 5 reasons of why people go into welfare, to then the government needs to pay for welfare, then those reasons are heavily influenced by the government. If the government was out of that process, then the prices for those things would go down and be more accessible, and we wouldn't need as much, people wouldn't need as much help as they're getting right now, or anywhere near it.
So in the United States, this is just an example. I want to preface that. So, and I prefer to operate in from a statistical lens. I don't like to use personal experience because I don't think that's relevant. So on the SNAP benefits, are you familiar with the SNAP program?
Yep. Yes.
So for every dollar that is given to SNAP recipients, $1.67 is injected into the economy, which is a good thing, right?
How the hell do you calculate that?
It's based on
how the hell do you calculate that you make money appear out of thin air? I don't understand.
It's based on NBC News. They have an analysis. I can link the article.
I'm sorry, that sounds mathematically impossible. I'm gonna have to understand how you do that.
It's according to calculations by Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's Analytics.
I don't care. I need to understand how the person at Moody's Analytics made money appear out of thin air.
Well,
it's a pretty tall claim.
Understand that? Okay, so you understand that when that it takes money to make money, right?
To invest it, certainly.
Right.
Are they investing it or consuming it?
Well, these are SNAP benefits that consumers are using. Mm-hmm. So how money is being made off of it is they're buying products, and those products are being sold at a profit.
Right. That's not how you make money, though. You're giving, actually the opposite. You're taking money from someone who would have invested it in a company, and that company may have grown 10% over a year. You're taking that money away, so they're no longer investing it in that company and giving it to people who consume it right away.
Right. So Mark Zandi looks to be a chief economist. I mean, I can only assume that he has economic credentials.
Right, but you're. Can you at least, in general, give me the gist of what it is that he's saying? Because it is. This is a sort of broken window fallacy that, you do that people on the left, let's say, I'm not saying you are, but people on the left do. If you take money out of the productive economy and give it to people to consume, you're not creating money. In fact, you're shrinking the economy, because if you didn't take that money, the economy may have grown on its own. It would have invested somewhere. You're taking money from productive endeavors and giving it to people who will consume it right away.
Well, we know the economy hasn't grown enough for the people that don't make enough money because they're not being paid enough money by the companies that they work for. Therefore, they need welfare benefits.
Why do you say that?
So let's use the minimum wage, for example. What is it, $7.25 in the United States? Now, I don't agree with the minimum wage, but it's a reality in the United States. I think what would serve the United States better is stronger unions that fight for the people that are working for those companies. So the idea behind my idea is that humanity is stronger collectively than we are individually. You being part of a group has more power than you by yourself. Do you acknowledge that?
I don't agree necessarily with what you're saying. I would say that in a society, you can associate with other people voluntarily, in the sense that I want to work for someone who's paying me, let's say he wants to pay me $10 an hour, and I don't like that. So I may take the opportunity right now in the US that there are 11 million job openings, last I checked, and travel to some other part of the country and get a job that pays me $18 an hour.
See, now we're operating from your own personal worldview rather than looking at the statistics and the data.
Well, I do need. It is important to say that I want to live I want to live like a full life. It is my life, and I'm looking for economy. I'm an immigrant. I'm looking for economies that best suit myself and my family. And there are opportunities in America for me if I, work hard, or if I'm particularly skilled, or if one part of the country doesn't give me opportunity, I may try another part of the country. So in terms of US, there's quite a lot of opportunities, and there isn't too many things standing in my way to achieve anything I want to achieve, or as much as I can, to benefit myself and my family.
Right, and how you can best gauge that is by looking at the data and the statistics, right?
Of everyone? No, just for what
No.
I can achieve. What are the opportunities available in this system?
So you take, for example, a growing field or a particular type of job in a market, and you see what the growth is associated with that field. You're looking at it statistically when you do that, right?
I mean, potentially, if I would have to have skills in that field, or if I want to gain skills in that field, I would do more research on it, but sure.
Right. So,
but for example, 11 million job openings is a form of statistics.
Yes. Now, that many job openings doesn't equal the number of people that are working minimum wage jobs, right?
The number of people working minimum wage jobs is 1 million.
It's 1 million?
Yes, and of those, about 60% are of the ages of 16 and 24.
Okay.
So children.
Thank you for that. Okay. So let's say all of those people quit their job and got a job making $30 an hour.
So can I?
What would happen?
You realize this
what would
just
happen?
happened. This has just happened.
In what scenario?
In the US, you had the Great Resignation, where like 4 million people quit every 1 or 2 months to move to better jobs.
Right. That's because of COVID. So COVID shut everything down, right? And then everything opened back up.
This is in 2022. COVID is ended in the middle of 21.
It wasn't just that didn't just happen in 2022. I read about that stuff happening in 2020 and 2021 as well.
No, I only read it this year, maybe, but as far as I know, there was the Great Resignation, where I don't think it happened during COVID, because I think people held on. I think people held on to their jobs during, and then when things started to pick up.
I think it started last year.
So I think either way. Let's say end of last year for argument's sake. Yeah.
Sure. So it started last year. Now, all those people that left their jobs.
Yep.
Now, all those restaurants are struggling to find new workers. And yes, they've raised their wages a bit. Like, you could probably get a job at like the local McDonald's now making $16 an hour. But $16 an hour isn't enough to live off of. Even if you have both, like let's say a family of 2, so they have 2 kids, and both the mom and the dad, or even if you want to say 2 dads or 2 moms, I don't really give a shit about that. Let's say they're both working for the same company but different locations, like McDonald's, right? And they're making $16 an hour. Even that isn't enough to provide for that family.
Okay, let's look at this like this. Let's say, for argument's sake, one parent is working and the other is not, and let's say they're doing $18 an hour at an Amazon warehouse. That's the minimum wage there. I think. Correct me if I'm not calculating this. I'm just doing from memory that it's 37,000 a year.
I think they're up to 20 an hour now.
Okay, let's just stick to 18. So it's 37,000 a year. Depends on where they are.
For a family of 4.
Sorry?
For a family of 4, 18 an hour is not enough.
Okay, what are the top payments for this family of 4? And why is it that someone like Amazon why are you starting an entry job at Amazon to pay for family of 4?
So let's say it's not an entry level, or let's say it's not an entry employee. Let's say it's an employee that is working in the warehouse at 18 an hour because they've been there for a couple of years, and prior to that they were making 15 an hour, which is what Amazon's starting wage used to be. And they got a few raises that got them to 17 an hour, but now Amazon is hiring at 18 an hour, so they bumped that person to 18 an hour.
18 an hour is the minimum currently.
Hold on. I'm not done.
Sure.
So typically, when you get a raise in the United States, it roughly averages around 3%.
Okay.
So as a result of 3% raises annually, so 2 years, they started at 15 an hour, and the third year, or even the fourth year, they now get bumped to 18 an hour because that's the new starting wage at Amazon. Now, 18 an hour, yes, they were getting raises before the new starting wage at 18 an hour, but they didn't exceed the 18 an hour because of the 3% that they were getting annually increasing, right? So now they're making 18 an hour. 18 an hour is still not enough because, like, let's say they live relatively close, like less than 30 minutes from the warehouse. The rent in that area, let's assume they don't own a home because they've never been able to buy a home. They've never been able to save up enough money. And this is a likely scenario. It's very plausible. The rent that they're paying is now $2,000 a month. 18 an hour isn't enough.
Yeah, I don't think they should pay that high for that amount of rent, especially if it's in an Amazon warehouse. It probably isn't next to a big city. Like, you wouldn't put a warehouse next to, or maybe slightly outside the city, but not in a big city. A lot of the warehouses are in relatively remote areas where the cost of living would be lower.
The Tampa area in Florida has an Amazon warehouse.
Okay. Inside the city, outside the city?
It's right outside the city. But that doesn't matter, though, because the rent in that area is averaging between $1,800 and $2,000 a month.
But you understand what I'm saying, that if the warehouse is outside the city, you can also live outside the city for less money.
So Tampa rent, even on the outskirts, is averaging around $1,800 a month.
For?
Okay.
For what?
And that is on the outskirts of the city. That's in Pasco County. And
is it still
Hernando
suburbs,
County,
or is it like
County.
Remote?
I'm sorry?
Is this suburbs, or is it like a remote area that you're looking at?
That's why I'm saying 18 an hour, 20 an hour is not enough.
How much was it on the outskirts again?
I'm pretty sure it's around $1,800 a month.
Was the 1,800, 2,000 you gave me inside Tampa or outside Tampa?
That's outside Tampa.
For what? 2-bed?
2-bedroom, 2-bath? 2-bedroom, 1-bath?
Okay, why is it? Why do you think the price is set as that? What do you think are the factors that make the house rent at that price?
Property values have gone up.
Okay. Are there enough properties? Do they need to build more?
I don't know.
Do you think it's likely that if there wasn't any restrictions on building houses, or in building houses with, let's say, like, I don't know, I'm trying to translate, but like a house is like 2 or 3 layers with 2 or 3 apartments, kind of, What is that called? Am I down now? Lou?
No, Garrett came out again. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yep.
What is a house with like 2 or 3 levels with 2 or 3 apartments per level? Well, sorry, an apartment per level.
I'm not familiar with that, but I was referring to renting houses, not apartments.
Yeah, but if you build those kinds of houses, so if you build like on a piece of land instead of one house for one family, it's now same land, but it's for three families. Then you could bring the rent down.
So like one plot of land, using it for an apartment complex instead of a house.
Not necessarily like a complex with like 10 or 12 or 18 apartments, just like 3. So they have these in Europe.
I don't know of any houses like that in the area that I'm describing.
Well, so that's a good example.
I don't know.
Like
I don't know why. I don't know why anyone would. So over here, those are called duplexes, where it's 2 houses joined together.
No, not a duplex. Not a duplex. No, we have those in the UK.
I think that's the closest. I think that's the closest that we're going to get to what you're talking about, though.
Do you know the TV show Friends?
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
Do you know what they live in?
Nope.
Well, okay, so just imagine like a building with 3 layers, and each layer is 1 apartment. It's like comfy, but it's just 1 apartment. 2 bed, 3 bed, 4 bed.
Okay, so it's like for college students.
No, it's for families. It's popular in Europe.
I don't think that's a thing over here. So I've been inside college apartments where they'll have 4 bedrooms with a center living area that is like, and then there's 4 bedrooms connected to that center area.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's for college.
So in the UK, for example, I lived like in a building where there was 3 levels, but it was a large building, so it was split into two. So there were 3 levels times 2, and 3 apartments times 2, so 6 total. And there was an elevator. Each apartment was 2 or 3 beds, and that's something you live like in Greater London, because it reduces the price of rent, and you can build more houses on the same plot of land, and it's still close to the city to some degree, so you need to make use of that space. And that kind of approach, where it's not just one family, one plot, one family, would bring the prices down for people to be able to live more affordably. And it's still very comfortable. It's not student by any stretch, but that's an example of here in Europe how we, and in Japan also, how they reduce the prices of housing and rent. But if for example the area of Tampa does not allow for those kinds of buildings, then people are not able to build those, and families aren't able to take advantage of these more affordable accommodations.
So I'm not so sure, even if they were to build those in Florida or any other state, that would reduce the cost of rent, especially since most of the country, there's only 4 states in the United States that has any form of rent control. Typically in state constitutions, it's against the constitution of that state to implement some form of rent control. So what that means is a landlord can increase the rent by as much as they want from one renewal to the next. So that's what I was referring to, for example, in like Miami, where I read some articles about. I read an article about this senior citizen who was paying $2,500 a month, and her rent increased to like $4,500 or $5,000 a month. And now I did grant that that's in a rich area, so presumably she has the money, at least for the $2,500. But to double somebody's rent, and this is occurring all over the country, like that's not sustainable for the population to continue. So, but even without that, it would be extremely difficult to make 18 to 20 an hour be enough for a family of 4.
So I maintain that if you didn't have these restrictions on building houses or what type of houses you can build, you would lower the affordability. You would lower the price of renting and the price of buying and selling houses in that particular area substantially. And in addition, bear in mind there's a few factors to this. So I'll give an example. I don't know if it's Singapore or Japan, but there was in that region of the world, they opened up to developers, say you can build whatever as much as you want. There's a shortage of housing. They built 150,000 units, apartments, in a very short amount of time, and it was crucial to lowering the price of that area. So if you just unlock the free market and unrestrict it, it will find solutions for people to have access to accommodations, cheaper housing. Just so you understand, like if you build on the same plot of land, if you build many layers, it's better for the developers because each apartment is reasonably priced. It's easier to get a mortgage for. Obviously, because the land has a certain price, the lawyers needed to pass all the different regulations and stuff like that. It has a certain price. But once you get all those things, if you build higher, you can make more money. And if you you can build more affordable houses if there are less restrictions on how many bathrooms you need to have, how many houses you need to have. These are sort of restrictions that the states do to make sure that you don't have houses below a certain standard so that lower income people can come into those areas, because to some degree states like New York are not interested, or Florida, are not interested for people of a certain income to be in that area. They'll think it's kind of affecting. So they have these guides and regulations that you have to build apartments or houses to a certain degree, and that lowers the number of people that are able to live there, and it increases the price. You gave an example of doubling of the price. That's insane. Obviously, there's some kind of issue with the market there, that there isn't any supply and the demand is apparently doubling by the price that you gave me. So obviously it's unsustainable, and for it to be sustainable is for the market to build more houses, and for the market to build more houses, you have to get out of the way and let it do that.
Do you have rent control where you're at? Like, do you pay rent where you're at?
I own a house.
Okay, so you own a house.
Yes.
So in your area, there are people paying rent, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
Are landlords allowed to increase the rent by any amount that they want from one renewal to the next?
They are allowed to increase it, but it will be difficult to enforce it because the renters will move out.
Well, then somebody else would just move in, right?
If it's too high, it can sit empty for half a year.
Oh, so it doesn't work like that here. Somebody will come along and pay it.
Well, I'm saying you have a huge shortage in housing.
I don't know if that's true, and I don't know if you can...
Of course it's true, otherwise why would the prices be so high?
Hey, hold on.
Sure.
I don't know if you can definitively say that without actually looking into it. There could be other factors that are causing that price to go up, right?
Well, it's clearly a price signal that there's a shortage.
Maybe. Can't there be other influences besides supply and demand?
I'm keen to hear what those may be.
Well, I like I said, I'd have to look into that. I don't know. But none of this disproves the necessity of welfare.
It does. Absolutely, it does.
No, it doesn't.
It does,
no,
because if the rent of that example you gave me was half what it is, then they could live quite comfortably. I'm assuming they could live quite comfortably, and if other things that are priced very high now are half what it is, then obviously they could manage quite well. So yes, it does affect welfare, because if your expenses are lower, you don't need, and even if your income is low but your expenses are low, you don't need welfare.
No, see, I think that you're missing the point of what I'm saying. It doesn't disprove the necessity of welfare. Right now, welfare is necessary because there are millions of people not making enough money because free markets have failed them.
Well, I disagree completely. I don't think. What are the top things that cost the most to these people? Give me like top 5.
Rent, daycare. Daycare is insanely expensive. That's
Okay.
costing roughly around $200
I'll tell
a
you
week
what.
per kid.
I'll steal man your argument for
Well,
you. You
you
tell me
asked
if
me to do
you,
the top 5.
yeah,
Now
I'll
you're
steal
interrupting me.
man you. You tell me if I've done it right, okay?
hmm
So we said housing, daycare. I'm gonna throw in healthcare, and I'm gonna throw in potentially higher education student loans. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I would say groceries are right now are a bigger concern than student loans, especially since those are on pause until the end of the year, and they've been on pause since Trump paused them. I would say student loans aren't a factor at all right now.
In general, they're a factor.
I mean, if you want to talk about before the last 3 years, okay, I guess. But that's
Okay,
not the
so
reality right now.
we'll take out
And it
student loans.
hasn't been the reality for the last 3 years. So that's
We'll
why I
take
would
out
prefer
student loans.
to
What else
not
would you like to
include
add?
student loans in the top 5. I would say housing, whether it's buying or renting,
Okay.
because buying houses is also dramatically increased.
Mhm.
Daycare, groceries, gas, although gas has come down.
Mhm.
So that's good. Yeah, those are the top 5.
Well, so let's address that. So can I say, for the sake of this argument, that I've discussed housing? Like I'm of the position that if housing was less restricted or unrestricted, then you'd have much more housing, or many more housing, sorry, and as a result, the price would go down. So can we put a tick next to housing for the sake of argument, or are you unsatisfied?
I'm unsatisfied because according to my friend Google, it
Yes.
says that the factors, hold on, I'm talking, factors driving these trends are extreme COVID-19 measures, high taxes in other states. It does list lack of available inventory as one of the reasons, so you are probably correct for at least a portion of it, but that is certainly not all of it. And
So are we talking
the
about
newest
rent?
influence, hold on, the newest influence, which is just inflation in general, that's also increasing prices too.
Sorry, so we just talked about rent. Yeah, you said something about COVID.
Yeah, if you just look up why have rent prices gone up, it says among the factors driving these trends are extreme COVID-19 measures and high taxes, lack of available inventory, and the newest band member inflation.
Okay, so high taxes obviously are government related. Why the COVID measures exactly?
Well, that's property taxes.
Yeah, that's
So
government, state,
mhm.
not
I'm
not
just
something of the free
clarifying
market.
that those are property taxes, not income tax, right?
Right, but this is taxes being high are something that I'm
Mhm.
fighting against. Like, this isn't a knock on me. Like, if your property taxes are high and as a result you have to pay a lot of money and it makes things unaffordable, and as a result you need welfare, that's a knock on the government putting people in that situation.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that aspect of
Okay,
it.
so just so I'm clear, what was the COVID-19 specifically, the effect on rent? I'm not clear on what you mean.
I'm just reading what it says on a Google search.
Okay, but what is
So
the
what
reason?
I would like to know, this is what I would like to know. So if welfare is removed, and I also want to say that I'm not on welfare. I don't need welfare. I mean, I was on it a few years ago because I didn't make enough money, but I'm not on it now. I was able to get off of it.
Mhm.
But if there's no welfare, like how would you go about doing that? Would you phase it out? Would you just cut it cold turkey?
I have like a phasing out method.
What is your solution for the people that do not make enough money right now?
So it's funny. So I do have like a phasing out approach. In general, like, let's just look at it holistically for a second. So before I explain the phasing out, I'll explain what I mean, and then I'll explain the phasing out. So in general, people can afford to live by 3 different ways. The 2 big ones are, you'll get a job and the economy will be large enough and the jobs will be competitive enough that you'll make a decent amount of money. So we have 11 million job openings. I'm assuming some of those are quite decently offering. The packages are quite decent. So, for example, a Walmart driver can make $110,000 a year, and everyone is like, most of the private sector are increasing wages and they're desperately looking for. I'm not sure if that's still the case now, but it was for the majority of the year. So that would be one side. If you leave the market alone and the market is bigger and grows, like if you don't tax it as heavily and it's allowed to invest in itself and grow, then you'll have more jobs, more competition for labor, and the wages grow accordingly. That's on the one side of the triangle. The other side is the market in and of itself reduces the price of goods and increases the quality of goods. So if you think of like a television or a car or a mobile phone, all these things over time on the whole become less expensive and better quality over time, just because of innovations and improvements to productivity. Market as a whole has a deflationary effect on the economy. Things that the free market has access to or isn't as heavily regulated go down in price. So if we apply that to other areas which are now heavily regulated and heavily intervened with, then those things, the prices of those things will come down too, meaning more people can afford to live, can buy more and more things. As a statistic to back this up, the consumer poverty rate as of 2018 is 2.8%. So 2.8% of people cannot afford certain things or most things on the CPI basket, and certain white goods, certain electronic goods. And if those things over time become less and less expensive, then more and more people can afford them, and the consumer poverty rate will go down as a result. And the last thing is, we will still have help for certain people, but that help would be in the form of charities, non-profit, social entrepreneurship. But bear in mind that if you factor in the first two legs of the triangle, then the number of those people will be less than 1%. Some people may be in the situation for no fault of their own. And these kind of systems are, I would say, very effective with the money that their patrons give to them, in terms of like, out of $1, how many cents arrives in the pockets of the people that need the help. Much, much more than the government is. And they're on the ground, they know how to solve problems, and they can compete with one another who can serve the needy in the best way, including volunteers, pro bono lawyers, pro bono hairdressers, and a variety of different things like food banks and things of those nature. So those are the three legs of the triangle. With regards to the transition, I would say...
I have a question.
Sure.
So I have a question first. You talked about deregulation.
Yes.
What forms of regulation would you not be in favor of eliminating?
So I would say that... Is there a limit
to the regulation that you would eliminate?
So in general, so I'll just give like an overview of the economy that I'm looking at, and then to answer your question. So in my perfect world, the government is a limited government. The government protects individual rights, and that's all it does. This means police, courts, army, police, courts, and largely that. So if there's a situation where someone attacked you physically, then the police will be there as your agent, so you do not need to engage in violence. And the idea of the system is to remove violence from society by the government having a monopoly on violence. And the reason is that once you have those individual rights and property rights and all those things, then you can then engage in a market. The idea of a market is to, when you have a transaction with someone, that there isn't coercion or violence between you, it's a voluntary exchange. So that's the extent of how much the government intervenes with the economy. I don't see it as intervening in the economy per se. I see it as just intervening between individuals who, let's say, have a dispute or something along those lines. But that's the thing. So in terms of regulations in the economy itself, I believe the economy will self-regulate itself. So there will be entities in the market, either in the form of business insurance or underwriters limited, or things of those nature, that regulate the market to give assurances and confidence in the market, because the market in and of itself, it has to have some degree of credibility, some degree of trust. If everyone scams one another, or even 50% of your purchases are scams, or then you would exit the market and the market would cease to exist. So the market itself has an incentive to make sure that the things inside of it are of good quality, meet a certain standard. And I believe that the free market will do it more effectively, more reactively, more efficiently than large bureaucracies like the government does at the moment, by a lot. And specifically in the area of healthcare, like I'm appalled at the record of the FDA, the history of it. I can go on and on, but it's killed so many people, and it's allowed to exist in its current capacity that it's not impressive, to say the least.
Oh yeah, the FDA is shit. But having said that, power companies dumping toxic waste in rivers, do you consider that a violation of individual rights?
Yes, it's a violation of property rights. If you own the river and someone, to some degree, like my system would be more stringent than yours, because currently the government owns the lake. It's a public property, and it allows people to dump things in it. Or let's put it this way: it allows companies to dump to a certain point. Like it weighs the benefit that the company does to the local area versus the negative it does to the water, and it says, okay, you're allowed to dump, but up to this. In my world, I own this stretch of land. In this stretch of land, there's a river. If someone dumps into my river, or even dumps up the river and it reaches me, I'll sue them. I mean, I won't allow that to happen.
Why not just have the government do what they're supposed to do, and
they are doing what they're supposed to do.
Against it?
They're making a decision for the benefit of society, how much pollution is okay and how much benefit from the company they're getting. So they'll wait. So for example, let's say the military.
The problem with the lawsuit idea is that's retroactive. That doesn't fix the problem.
I don't understand why it doesn't fix the problem. I said my system is more stringent than yours.
I mean, my system should be, or I guess the United States should be more stringent than it is.
Why? It's a utilitarian. Okay. Let me put it in a different way. So let me tell you two things. You tell me what you think.
A lawsuit doesn't prevent it from happening in the first place.
It doesn't. It may not prevent it from happening in the first place.
I wouldn't want it to happen in the first place, because just because of how many people have died as a result of that alone, from like leukemia and different types of cancers as a result of that toxic waste. There are areas in this country that are borderline uninhabitable, in my opinion.
Okay, so I understand. I agree that I think that my system is a big enough disincentive to prevent people from dumping it in the river. If you're saying that people get leukemia from that all the more reason why the people would very much not consider dumping it, because they'll be sued. They may even go to prison. They may lose their freedom. But they'll be sued to pay for everyone's chemotherapy for leukemia and compensation, and it will be very, very sis. Hold on, I just need to let my dog out. Just hold on a second. Ugh. Right, so let me explain why what you're saying is not really the reality. So let's take the US military. Now, the US military pollutes more than 140 countries combined. Certain radioactive things, certain things it dumps, all sorts of weaponry that it gets rid of in the environment. But the US government says, well, we need to protect our country. This is just a side effect of what we need. And that's acceptable. So, and it's going to do that in any case. So, for example, let's say you have a coal factory. Like you, right now, the energy prices are very, very high. And you need electricity from some coal. So you're like, okay, we need more coal at the moment. We turn those on. We pollute the environment. People, cough and they get, I don't know, lung disease or whatnot. I'm exaggerating, but we're weighing it as the cost of everyone else not freezing to death in winter, let's say. And similarly,
black lung disease that's an accurate reflection of the black lung disease. So
yeah, I'm just saying. I don't mean like. I'm just giving an example. So we're weighing the negatives and the positive for overall society. Now, if a bunch of people get black lung, it was for the greater good. If someone dumps something in the water and some people go leukemia, it was for the greater good. That's how the government weighs. Now, if the argument, maybe this is a bit of a tangent, but just allow me for a second. Let's say, for argument's sake, that the reason why people dump stuff in the river is to make a profit, to save money, then disposing it in a different way. And let's say we look at a system that has no, historically in the past had no profit incentive, had no property rights, and it was entirely controlled command style economy by the government. In that scenario, you would imagine, based on these incentives, that the environment would be pristine, amazingly clean, and it was completely the opposite. In the USSR, command style economy, no profit motive, no private property. It was industrializing. It was extremely polluted. You had rivers that had signs to not throw matches or cigarettes overboard because they would catch fire. The Aral Sea is almost gone, and even then the Aral Sea had like floating bergs of rubbish, like 8 mile long to 1 mile across, 1 mile, whatever, 8 mile, 1 mile. There were rivers in Russia that were for caviar, that lost all their fish. Places in Poland, the air was so thick with pollutants that there were doctor offices underground. And it was very polluted. And I don't even have to go that far. I mean, just recently in China, that is also trying to industrialize, you have sludges of green sludges instead of rivers. Beijing was extremely polluted, like people needed masks since 2008, and children got, what is children? You know that thing with the coughing thing that children get? And you need like a humidifier to get rid of?
Asthma.
They got asthma from being in Beijing. So, I mean, the government, and you know, there was more of a profit motive there, but the government was just, you know, doing all these projects, and it was green lighting all these things that caused a lot of pollution because they waited for the greater good of society. In my world, I have a property right. If you damage my land, if you dump on my land, if you hurt my property, which is my body, I'm going to sue you one-on-one. Now, what I need the government to come up with a reasonable measure of what is harm. So if it's like 0.2% of this substance, then if it's above that, then I'm harmed. It has to be a reasonable measure. But once they make that decision, I then, you know, go to my land. I see, oh, it's above 0.2. I'm taking it to court. That's it.
Yeah, but companies don't like measure their risk in that way. Like they'll do something anyways and build the cost of lawsuits, including settlements, which is what happens with like 90% of lawsuits, into their profit structure. So I just don't think that your system would work because of that.
So you don't have faith. You don't have faith in the legal system.
Well, so first, companies do what they want now. And if there's less regulation and less laws to the point where all a government is allowed to do is provide a pricing structure for lawsuits, then they'll do what they want even more.
I didn't say that. I didn't say there was a pricing.
Hold on. I don't understand why you would think companies would just voluntarily not violate people's rights when they're already violating people's rights.
So, specifically, my system protects individual rights more than the existing system. And
that doesn't
I didn't
mean
say. Allow me to just finish. Allow me to just finish. Allow me to finish. Specifically, I didn't say that it was priced. That the price of what they have to pay was predetermined. The price could be very, very high. That there are no, but my system would get them to court more swiftly, and the rules for when the law is broken would be much, much clearer than they are at the moment. So let's say currently it's up to a lot of things are up to the subjectivity of the judge. In my system, the laws will be more objective. You'd know when you've crossed the line. You know more quickly, like if something was broken, if a law was broken, if something was violated. And they'll have to pay. Now, if you say, for example, that a company still wants to dump a lot of stuff in my property, but it's willing to offer me a lot of money to dump it on my land and, like, you know, put like sand over it, well, I'll say, how much are you offering me? Because, if you're offering me like millions of pounds, I may say yes. And you say, okay, put it in this hole, I'll cover it, and we'll agree to that. But otherwise, if it wants to violate my rights, then it's going to have to pay quite a lot of money for that, or compensation, or even lose their freedom.
Only if you're aware of it.
And you think I wouldn't be aware of someone dumping on my land?
It's a possibility, is it not?
Well, we seem to be getting along the lines of science fiction here. I'm not sure if this is helpful.
All right.
It's not science fiction to postulate or hypothesize that somebody is dumping toxic waste in a river that floats by your house and you not notice it.
And
That's not an unreasonable
and if I do notice
scenario.
it, and if I do notice it, and the company has to pay billions and goes to prison, then what?
I mean, yeah, you can say that you'll notice it, but you're human just like everyone else. You don't know for sure if you would notice it or not. I mean,
Okay,
that's
I noticed
like
some. I noticed
saying
the
that
river.
you wouldn't make that kind of a mistake is science fiction in and of itself.
I noticed that things around the river start to look a bit different coloration. Things are starting to die out where I would have expected plants to be. I inquire. I send someone in. He takes a sample of the water and he says, "Oh, you've got $1 billion lawsuit here. Plus, perhaps people in that company will have to go to prison, lose their freedom outright."
Maybe. Okay. Lou, you have any questions?
Yeah,
we didn't.
wrote down a few.
Oh, are we finished?
Yeah,
I mean,
Garrett's got to run
I
at 6:30. I mean, 5:30. Wait, 7:30? Oh, you got to run in like a couple minutes.
Yeah, I have to start doing other stuff. So, but I wanted to give Lou a chance to ask both of us questions.
Yeah, I wrote down a few questions. I'll just run through them real quick. Garrett, do you know the price of black pepper today?
No.
All right. Essentially free. You can just go get some black pepper at McDonald's and just steal it. Like, free.
That is true.
Do you know what?
Not only is that true, but I also saw this. Now I granted this is a TV show, but anyways, this guy got like a donut box out of the trash, and it wasn't like really dirty or anything, and there was a receipt in the box. He walked inside and demanded they give him 2 chocolate donuts because they didn't put 12 donuts in his box. They only put 10, and he didn't pay for anything. He walked out with 2 chocolate donuts.
Nice. Do you know what the price of black pepper was in the Middle Ages?
That would have been free because you could just go get it yourself.
No, I don't
More
think so.
expensive than gold.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
So that price change over those few hundred years is largely due to capitalism.
Yeah, totally. I'm not against capitalism. I just want to say that. I'm not for socialism either.
Yeah,
so.
that was just a rejoinder to the first couple of comments you made in the beginning.
Yeah, fair enough.
I just want to add like 2 things, if I may.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I think I just wanted to add like 2 quick points that because I won't have time for anything else, but I would say that the currently the price of gas and the price of food is directly related to the government's action on energy policies. Let's take the UK. Our electricity prices here are 3 or 4 times higher than they were less than a year ago. This was because the government divested from coal and invested in wind farms. We don't have a lot of sun here, so it invested in wind farms. Mm-hmm. And as a result, the backup for wind farms is natural gas, and now we also use natural gas for heating. And now we have a situation where the prices is like really insanely high. And in addition, like, fossil fuels or something, we need to synthetic fertilizer is based on natural gas and fossil fuels.
Yes.
That affects the price of food.
Easy. Second questions to you. Under your system, could you afford a $22,000 4-day stay at a hospital?
So I would say under my system, you would either have emergency insurance for something like that, or you would
Yeah,
have.
could you afford a $22,000 4-day stay at the hospital?
Pretend that's
what's the
after the
context?
insurance makes their payment.
What's the context?
You got a head injury and you had to go into the hospital and they had to keep you there for 4 days and it's going to cost you $22,000.
What happened with my insurance?
You're providing whatever.
I don't have
Like
insurance.
it's your system. Okay, so can you afford the $22,000 payment?
I mean, I can.
Okay. Moving on. Garet, the answer you were looking for on how to turn the $1 into the $1.3 is monetary velocity.
Thank you. I forgot about that phrase.
Yeah. That's how the $1 turns into the $1.3.
Yeah.
The same dollar gets spent within the community multiple times, and it comes out to being 1.3 times within the community. So that was the answer PZH needed. PZH, if your government that you're under right now is so oppressive, why not just move to the US?
Considering it, if right now the corporation tax will go up by 6% in 2023-24, and I have colleagues that have already left the country because of similar increases, so we're considering it. I don't know about America per se, but yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the next point. PZ, houses in the outskirts of Tampa are so expensive because we have a little thing here in the US called the suburbs.
Yeah, I wanted to say suburbs are so a lot of the things with the suburbs that I understood that are expensive is because roads are expensive to build in those areas. So it's like the upkeep for the suburbs area is expensive. So if you have more people, it becomes cheaper.
That's not why suburbs are expensive. Suburbs are expensive because they're transit communities. So the people live there and then travel to work.
Okay.
And so you have the more affluent people moving to the outskirts of the city into the suburbs, and that drives up all the prices.
Yeah,
so
my area is like that too, but the prices aren't that high compared to Greater London by any stretch.
In your area, what is the typical commute time?
I can get into London in about 50 minutes train.
Okay. So here you're looking at 1 to 2 hours by car and to the place where you work.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
It takes me 2 hours to get to work. It takes me 2 hours to get to work.
I can do 1.5 hours. So like it takes me 20 minutes to get to the train station. That gets me to London. Two stations in London. Then I need to travel some more into central London. That's an hour and a half.
Yeah, but that's why it's so expensive in the outskirts of Tampa, because it's suburbs. PZ, there's no meaningful distinction between apartment buildings and quadplexes. All that really matters is the number. It's a building that has 4 units.
Okay.
It's instead of a duplex being 2 units, it's a quadplex and has 4 units.
Cool.
So there's no meaningful difference between apartment buildings and quadplexes. All that actually matters is the number of units in the building.
Okay.
Garet.
Yo.
The largest limiting factor for local rent markets is zoning codes. So they can only build specific types of buildings in specific areas. That puts artificial constraint on these buildings, which are the largest factors. Well, it could drive it up, it could drive down. It just depends what it is. But it's the largest constraining factor for these local markets.
Good information. Thank you.
So, PZ, you're generally against regulation. What about like labor regulations?
I'm not against regulation. Let me explain. I'm not against regulations in general. I'm against government regulation. I'm for market-based regulations, like insurance company and business insurance companies, a variety of different things. If you mentioned labor, I'm not against unions. I'm only against government giving unions legal power or laws behind unions. But if unions want to, if people want to associate freely in a union and then negotiate better work conditions, safer conditions, that is fine. To me, that's free market.
There's a lot of problems with that, but I'm not going to go over it because I'm trying to get these done. PZ, in your systems, your land's downriver and it gets poisoned. How can I trust you not to bring frivolous lawsuits?
It needs. So this is the objective. What I mentioned when the government has reasonable metrics to when something has been violated.
Okay, so you can't just bring frivolous lawsuits. You're just claiming that it's this way, and you just paid off some researcher to say it is.
Well, maybe the other company will get their own researcher, or the court will ask for a neutral researcher. But if that researcher says that it's above 0.2 something, and that 0.2 is what the government decided is above a particular limit, and that's it.
Okay. Next one's to Peasy. How do you account for corruption and bribery?
Corruption and bribery as a form of theft then is illegal.
Oh, okay, so the corporation pays off the judge to throw your suit out. Then where you're at.
I can appeal to a higher court, but it's no different than it is.
He bribes the judge. They throw it out.
There are people that have gone to jail for bribing judges for not they're not paying money. They are in prison. They've lost their freedom.
The government has almost no power.
What do you mean the government has no power? What is this?
Almost
what is this? I don't understand this cynicism in your legal system. There was a case. There was a case where judges.
We're not talking about our legal system. We're talking about yours.
Yeah, you have this really negative
impression.
You have this really negative impression of your legal system that you're saying, well, it's useless. We need regulations. What if someone bribes a regulator to pass a regulatory capture? An interest group goes to a regulator, says, pass this law that benefits me but hurts my competitors. You have the same thing. That's not even illegal. That's just regular lobbying. And if someone bribes a judge and they get caught, they'll go to prison for many, many years. They'll lose their freedom. It's not a matter of they'll just pay a fine. That's it. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, no, that was the last bit. Thank you.
Thank you both. I appreciate it. It was an enjoyable conversation. PZH.
Thanks, Garet.
I have nothing against you. No hard feelings. It was fun.
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you for and thank you for moderating, Lou.
No problem. Catch you next time, gents.
Bye.